This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast for August 13th, 2020. And on today's episode, I'm going to be answering a question from somebody who asked me if my book is going to have rituals in it or not.
This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast, the official podcast of Shadow Path Diabolism, your daily dose of Diabolonian philosophy to inspire you on your journey down the crooked shadow path. Here's your host, R.J. Womack, Brother Nero.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for this episode of the podcast. This is Brother Nero, aka RJ Womack. This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast. And on today's episode, I'm going to be answering a question about whether my book will have rituals in it or not. And before I get into that, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be premiering the pilot episode of Nero and the Pig, which is our entertainment show, which may end up on our ministry podcast network if y'all guys like it. So please let us know what you think when I air it tomorrow. This is going to be a very quick podcast because I'm way behind today. And so I'm just going to answer a very simple question, and I'll answer your questions. For those of you who've sent me questions that are waiting for a response, I will continue answering them on Saturday. But anyway, for now, my book will have rituals in it. It's meant to be a practical guide. It's meant to get people involved in the Shadow Path tradition of diabolism. It's meant to get people actively worshiping Satan and actively connecting with Satan. So yes, it will be mainly focused on practice and on applying the principles of Shadow Path diabolism in your daily life. The other thing I want to mention is that it's, I've told my beta readers, and I'm going to tell the editors that I eventually pick, or the editor that I eventually pick, that I want them to be on the lookout for me taking the focus away from the practice of Shadow Path diabolism, from diabolism, because I want it to be a book of practice. I want it to be something more like Modern Witchcraft or Mastering Witchcraft or something like that, a very practical guide. And I don't want it to be about what the tradition is against. I want it to be about what the tradition is for. And I don't want to spend any time criticizing other traditions of Satanism or diabolism or witchcraft. I want to spend time defining and laying out what Shadow Path diabolism is all about. And by the way, I also want to mention that the ministry is going to be based on Shadow Path diabolism, this particular tradition, but you don't have to be a member of the ministry in order to practice the tradition. In fact, the whole point of doing this book is to get people actively worshiping Satan and serving Satan. So if you like the tradition, if you like the book, you can sign up for a newsletter, which I'm going to have, which will give you updates on, hopefully, other books that are coming out in the series that add to the tradition without being a member of the ministry. Because the idea is not to make this tradition something that is focused around one particular ministry or one particular organization. The idea is for it to be its own tradition and for people to practice it and to help it live and breathe, so it becomes a living, breathing religion and a living, breathing tradition. It's not meant to be, just a Brother Nero thing. It's meant to be a tradition that survives and thrives. And so if you like the tradition, if you like the ideas behind the tradition, I would encourage you to practice it. And like I said, you don't have to be a part of the ministry, but I'd also like your input, the people that listen to this podcast, about what you liked about the book, what you want to see in future books to add to the series, to build on the tradition. You have to understand that this book is the fulfillment of a childhood promise that I made to Satan. I was so angry growing up when I saw the reverence and respect that the Christians gave to the Christian God that I promised Satan that if I was ever given the opportunity to represent him, to build a tradition for him, to build an organization for him, that I would build a tradition and a religious organization that restored him back to a place of honor and gave him the respect that he was entitled to as the true God, as the true Lord of the earth, and the true God of mankind, and the benefactor of mankind that deserved the respect and reverence and worship of mankind. And I would give that same respect to him and the demons if it was possible. So being that I'm doing this podcast and it's building an audience, I feel like I have a personal obligation to fulfill that promise to him. So it's very important that this second book, especially, because now I kind of know what I'm doing. I kind of know more about publishing. I kind of know more about marketing books. I kind of have an idea of what's going on, and I'm not totally lost. So I feel like this book has to be the actual first book in a series of books that builds on this tradition. And I want to make sure that it does him justice. I want to make sure that it gives Satan and the demons the respect they deserve. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Take care.
If you would like to learn more about the Shadow Path Diabolism tradition of occultism, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com. If you enjoy this podcast and support our message, tell a friend, leave us a review, and follow us on social media.